My mill demanded monthly appreciation money for raising my husband and lied to relatives that I already agreed. But I exposed her scheme at a family birthday and she retaliated by telling everyone I banned her. I own a consulting firm that I started from scratch 7 years ago. I work between 50 to 60 hours every week and built everything without loans or family money. My husband Hendrix, 33M, works in accounting at a mid-sized company. We have been married for 3 years now. I am 31F. Hendrix's mother Eliana, 58F, never worked outside the home after she got married. His father Gerald, 60M, managed a hardware store for most of his career before retiring 2 years ago. They live in a modest 3-bedroom house about 20 minutes from us. Eliana has always been involved in Hendrix's life. She calls him at least 4 times a week. She expects us at Sunday dinners twice a month without fail. When Hendrix and I were dating, Eliana made comments about my work schedule. She mentioned how difficult it must be for Hendrix to have a girlfriend who works such long hours. She asked if I planned to keep working after marriage. I told her my business was important to me. She smiled but said nothing else that day. After our wedding, the comments changed slightly. Eliana started talking about how she dedicated her entire life to raising Hendrix and his younger sister Brielle, 29F. She said modern women did not understand sacrifice anymore. She said mothers like her invested everything into their children without expecting anything back. The way she emphasized the word invested always struck me as odd. 6 months ago, we went to Sunday dinner at their house. I had worked a full Saturday handling a client emergency, so I was already tired. Eliana made pot roast with vegetables. Gerald talked about his golf game. Brielle and her husband Bryce, 31M, were there too. Everything seemed normal until dessert. Eliana set down her coffee cup and looked directly at me. She said she wanted to discuss a family tradition that apparently existed in her social circle. She explained that several of her friends had daughters-in-law who gave monthly financial gifts to show appreciation for raising their husbands. She called it a respect payment. She said it was a beautiful custom that honored the years of sacrifice mothers made. I thought she was joking. I actually laughed. Then I saw Hendrix's face. He was staring at his plate like it contained the most interesting pattern he had ever seen. Eliana did not laugh. She continued talking. She said a modest amount like $200 per month would be appropriate. She said it was not about the money but about recognizing her contribution to making Hendrix the man he became. Brielle coughed. Bryce looked at his phone. Gerald cleared his throat but said nothing. I stopped laughing. I asked Eliana if she was serious. She said of course she was serious. She said her friend Deborah received $300 monthly from her daughter-in-law. She said another friend Caroline got gifts and cash that totaled around $500. She said $200 was actually quite reasonable. Hendrix finally spoke. He said maybe we should discuss this later. Eliana ignored him. She looked at me and said she hoped I understood the value of tradition. She said she had raised Hendrix with her own hands and deserved acknowledgement. I told her parenting was a choice that parents made, not a service they provided for payment. She pressed her lips together. She said she could see I needed time to think about it. We left shortly after. In the car, Hendrix was silent for the first 10 minutes. Then he said his mother had mentioned this idea to him a few weeks earlier. I asked why he never told me. He said he thought she would drop it. He said she sometimes got ideas from her friends that did not make sense. He said he planned to handle it himself. I told him this was not something he could handle quietly. This was his mother asking his wife for monthly payments. He said he knew it sounded bad. He said his mother struggled with feeling unappreciated since his father retired. He asked me to just ignore it for now. I could not ignore it. The next Sunday, Eliana called to invite us for dinner again. I was busy with work so Hendrix went alone. When he came home, he mentioned his mother had brought up the payment thing again. She told him that good sons made sure their wives understood family values. She said if I truly loved him, I would honor her this way. Hendrix looked exhausted. He said he told her it was not happening but she kept pushing. 3 weeks passed. I thought maybe Eliana had accepted defeat. Then Brielle called me. She said we needed to talk about the situation with Eliana. I asked what situation. Brielle said Eliana had been telling relatives that I already agreed to the monthly payments. She said their Aunt Linda had congratulated Brielle on having such a generous sister-in-law. She said their cousin Beth asked Brielle when I was planning to start because Eliana had mentioned it might begin this month. I asked Brielle why Eliana would lie. Brielle said their mother had a pattern of announcing things as if they were decided when they were not. She said Eliana did this to create social pressure. She said once enough people knew about something, it became harder to refuse because then you looked like the bad person who backed out. I called Hendrix at work. I told him what Brielle said. He went quiet. Then he admitted his mother had been texting him daily about setting up the payment. She sent him her bank account details. She created a list of monthly expenses she said the money would cover. The list included hair salon visits, contribution to their utilities, money for dining out with friends, and gas for her car. The total came to around $450 but she said she would accept $400 to be fair. That evening, Hendrix and I had the first serious argument of our marriage. I said his mother was trying to scam us. He said scam was too harsh a word. I asked what else you call demanding money for performing basic parental responsibilities. He said his mother felt insecure about not having her own income. I said that was not our problem to solve with monthly checks. He said maybe we could give her something small just once to make peace. I told him no. I said if we paid once, it would never stop. I said his mother would see it as validation and increase her demands. Hendricks rubbed his face with both hands. He said he just wanted everyone to get along. I told him getting along could not mean letting his mother treat me like an ATM machine. The following Saturday, Eliana showed up at our house unannounced. Hendricks was at the gym. I was working in my home office. She rang the doorbell 3 times before I answered. She walked past me into the living room without being invited in. She sat on our couch and said we needed to have an honest conversation. She said she raised Hendricks through sleepless nights, paid for his school supplies, drove him to soccer practice, cooked thousands of meals, and sacrificed her own career ambitions. She said all of that had value. She said modern society forgot to honor mothers. She said $200 monthly was not about greed but about principle. I sat down across from her. I asked if she paid her own mother-in-law monthly when she married Gerald. She blinked. She said that was different. I asked how it was different. She said things were not done that way back then. I said exactly, because it was not a real tradition but something she invented recently. She stood up. Her voice got louder. She said I was disrespectful and selfish. She said Hendricks deserved better than someone who counted every penny. She said if I truly appreciated him, I would appreciate her. I stayed seated. I asked her if she sent monthly payments to Gerald's mother when they were newlyweds. She did not answer. She grabbed her purse and walked to the door. Before leaving, she turned and said this was not over. Hendricks came home an hour later. I told him about the visit. He closed his eyes and leaned against the wall. He said he would talk to her. I said talking was not working. I said we needed a different approach. That week, I called Brielle and asked if she wanted to have coffee. We met at a cafe near her workplace. I explained my plan. Brielle listened and then started laughing. She said it was brilliant. She said she would help. The next family gathering was Gerald's birthday dinner. Eliana hosted it at their house. Besides us and Brielle's family, Hendricks' Aunt Linda, Uncle George, and their 2 adult children were there. Eliana made a big production of the meal. She kept mentioning how much work went into cooking for the whole family. After dinner, when everyone was having cake, I stood up and thanked Eliana for hosting. Then I said I wanted to share something wonderful. I said Eliana had introduced me to a beautiful family tradition. I explained the monthly appreciation payment concept in detail. I said it was such a thoughtful way to honor mothers. Then I said if this tradition was meaningful for Eliana, it should be meaningful for all the mothers in the family. I looked at Linda and said she should also receive monthly payments from her children. Linda looked confused. Her daughter Emma asked what I meant. I explained that according to Eliana, mothers deserve financial compensation for raising their children. The room went silent. George asked if this was a joke. Eliana's face turned red. She said I was misunderstanding. I said no, I understood perfectly. I said Eliana had explained it very clearly. I turned to Brielle and asked if she and Bryce would be setting up payments to Eliana. Brielle played along. She said it seemed fair if everyone was doing it. Bryce nodded slowly. Linda started laughing. She said this was the most ridiculous thing she ever heard. She said if her own kids tried to pay her monthly, she would think something was wrong with them. George agreed. He said parents raise children because that is what parents do. He said asking for payment was strange. Eliana tried to backtrack. She said it was just an idea, not a serious demand. Linda asked why she told everyone I had agreed to it. Eliana said that was a misunderstanding. Emma said her mom had mentioned it at book club. She said Eliana described it as a done deal. The evening ended awkwardly. People left earlier than usual. On the drive home, Hendricks was quiet. Finally, he said maybe his mother would drop it now. I said I hope so. She did not drop it. Instead, she sent Hendricks a long text message 2 days later. The message said I had humiliated her in front of the family. It said I turned everyone against her. It said I was poisonous and manipulative. Hendricks showed me the text. He typed a response saying his mother was out of line and needed to apologize to me. She replied that she would never apologize for wanting basic respect. The texts between them continued for several days. Eliana accused Hendricks of choosing his wife over his mother. Hendricks said he was choosing his marriage over unreasonable demands. She said he was brainwashed. He stopped responding after that. Update 1: 3 weeks have passed since the birthday dinner incident. Things have not calmed down the way I hoped they would. Eliana stopped speaking to Hendricks entirely. She blocked his number. When he tried calling from my phone, she answered and then hung up immediately after hearing his voice. Brielle told me their mother was crying to relatives about being abandoned and disrespected. Eliana apparently spent hours on the phone with various family members explaining her side of the story. She told people I publicly mocked her at the birthday party. She said I convinced Hendricks to cut her off financially even though she was struggling. The struggling part was news to me. Gerald still has his pension. They own their house outright. Hendricks mentioned they had savings from his father's years of working. Brielle confirmed their parents were not in any financial trouble. Eliana just wanted extra spending money without having to ask Gerald for it. Then something happened that changed everything. Gerald called Hendricks and asked him to come over alone. Hendricks went last Saturday afternoon. He came back 3 hours later looking like someone had punched him in the stomach. Gerald had shown Hendricks their bank statements. For the past 8 months, Eliana had been withdrawing cash in amounts of $200 to $500 every few weeks. The withdrawals totaled almost $6,000. Gerald only noticed recently when he checked their accounts online. When he asked Eliana about it, she said the money went to household expenses. But Gerald tracks their household spending and the numbers did not match. Gerald confronted her more firmly. Eliana finally admitted she had been lending money to her friend Deborah. Deborah apparently was going through a divorce and needed help with legal fees and living expenses. Eliana said she could not just abandon her friend in crisis. Gerald asked why she never discussed it with him. She said he would have said no. Hendricks asked his father why he was telling him this. Gerald said because Eliana had asked Hendricks for monthly money while she was giving away their savings to her friend. Gerald said he felt Hendricks deserved to know the full picture. He also said Eliana had been complaining to Deborah about me for months. Deborah was apparently the one who suggested the monthly payment idea in the first place. Deborah told Eliana that her own daughter-in-law gave her money regularly, which was how Eliana got the whole concept. I asked Hendricks if Deborah actually received money from her daughter-in-law. Hendricks said his father doubted it. Gerald thought Deborah invented that story to manipulate Eliana into giving her money. Eliana fell for it completely and then tried to get the same arrangement from us to cover what she was spending on Deborah. This information sat heavy in our house for a few days. Hendricks did not know how to process it. His mother had lied to him. She had tried to guilt me into payments while secretly funding her friend's divorce. The whole tradition story was just a cover for her own poor financial choices. Brielle called me 4 days after Hendricks talked to Gerald. She was upset. Eliana had started a new campaign. Since the direct approach failed, she was now telling extended family that Hendricks and I were preventing her from seeing future grandchildren. Brielle said their Aunt Linda called asking if it was true that we banned Eliana from our lives. Brielle said their cousin Beth sent her a message saying it was sad how modern couples cut off their parents over small disagreements. I asked Brielle where this was coming from. Brielle said their mother was painting herself as a victim. Eliana told people that she made one small request for help and I blew it out of proportion. She left out the part about demanding monthly payments and lying about me agreeing to it. She definitely left out the part about giving away $6,000 to her friend. Hendricks decided he needed to send a group message to the extended family. He wrote out a clear timeline of events. He explained that his mother demanded regular monthly payments in exchange for having raised him. He explained that she told relatives I agreed when I had not. He explained that she showed up at our house to pressure me. He included screenshots of her texts calling me manipulative and poisonous. He ended the message by saying we were not cutting off his mother but we were setting boundaries about financial demands and unannounced visits. He sent the message to the family group chat. The responses were mixed. Linda apologized for believing Eliana's version without asking questions. George said he suspected there was more to the story. Emma said the screenshots were eye-opening. A few cousins said they wanted to stay out of family drama. Brielle thanked Hendricks for clarifying things. Eliana saw the messages because she was still in the group chat. She sent a single response. She said Hendricks was a disappointment and she regretted everything she sacrificed for him. Then she left the group chat. Gerald called Hendricks again. He said Eliana was refusing to speak to him too now. She moved into their guest bedroom. She spent most of her time on the phone with Deborah. Gerald said he tried to explain that Hendricks was just protecting his marriage but Eliana would not listen. Gerald sounded tired. Hendricks asked his father if he should try to see his mother in person. Gerald said maybe give it more time. He said Eliana needed to cool down first. Hendricks agreed. 2 days ago, something else happened. Brielle called me in the evening. She said I needed to know something but I had to promise not to tell Hendricks it came from her. I said I could not promise that because Hendricks and I do not keep secrets. Brielle said fine, but please be careful with the information. She said Bryce's mother had coffee with Eliana last week. Bryce's mother mentioned to Brielle that Eliana seemed different lately. She talked constantly about money and respect. Then Eliana apparently asked Bryce's mother if Brielle and Bryce gave her monthly payments for raising Bryce. Bryce's mother laughed and said no. Eliana said maybe they should consider starting such a tradition. Brielle said her mother was now trying to plant the same idea in Bryce's mother's head. Brielle worried that if it worked, she and Bryce would face the same pressure we did. Bryce's mother thought it was absurd and told Eliana that parents do not charge their children for parenting. But Brielle was concerned Eliana would find someone else to manipulate into supporting her ideas. I told Hendricks everything Brielle shared. He put his head in his hands. He said his mother was not going to stop. I said we could not control what she did with other people. We could only control our own boundaries. Hendricks agreed but he looked defeated. Last night, Hendrix's grandmother called. This is Eliana's mother, Ellen, 81F. Ellen does not call often because she has arthritis that makes phone use difficult. When she does call, it means something serious is happening. Ellen asked Hendrix to explain what was going on with Eliana. Hendrix gave her the whole story from beginning to end. Ellen listened without interrupting. When Hendrix finished, Ellen was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that made Hendrix put the phone on speaker so I could hear too. Ellen said Eliana had always had ideas above her station. Ellen said when Eliana married Gerald, she expected a certain lifestyle that Gerald's salary could not provide. Ellen said Eliana resented staying home with children when her friends were buying new cars and taking vacations. Ellen said Eliana had always felt entitled to more than what she had. Then Ellen said something that shocked both of us. She said Eliana tried the same monthly payment scheme on her and Hendrix's grandfather 15 years ago. Eliana told them she needed help with expenses and asked for $300 per month. Hendrix's grandfather refused. He told Eliana that he and Ellen raised her without expecting payment and she needed to manage her own household budget. Eliana did not speak to them for almost a year after that. Hendrix had no memory of this family rift. Ellen said he was probably too young to notice or Eliana and his grandfather hid it well. Ellen said she was not surprised Eliana tried the same thing with us. She said Eliana never learned that you cannot charge your family for love. Hendrix asked his grandmother what he should do. Ellen said stand firm. She said Eliana would eventually realize she was isolated by her own choices. Ellen said giving in would only teach Eliana that manipulation works. Then Ellen said she was going to call Eliana herself and have words with her. That conversation happened this morning. Brielle texted me 2 hours ago. She said their grandmother called their mother and apparently yelled at her for 20 minutes. Ellen told Eliana she was being delusional and greedy. Ellen said Eliana was destroying her relationship with her son over imaginary debts. Ellen said if Eliana kept this up, she would end up alone because nobody tolerates financial abuse disguised as tradition. Eliana apparently cried through most of the call. After Ellen hung up, Eliana called Brielle and said the whole family was against her. Brielle told her the family was not against her but they were against her demanding money from Hendrix and me. Eliana hung up on Brielle. Now we are here. Eliana is not speaking to Hendrix, Gerald, Brielle, or Ellen. She blocked all of them on her phone. Gerald said she leaves the house every day to spend time with Deborah. He said he is considering what to do about his marriage if this continues. Hendrix feels guilty even though he did nothing wrong. I keep reminding him that setting boundaries is healthy. But watching him hurt over his mother's choices is difficult. Update 6 weeks have passed since my last update. The situation with Eliana took a turn I did not expect. Gerald filed for a legal separation 3 weeks ago. Hendrix found out when his father called to explain the decision. Gerald said he could not live with someone who lied about their finances and refused to communicate. He said the final breaking point came when he discovered Eliana had opened a credit card in their joint name and charged $8,000 on it. Most of the charges were cash advances. When Gerald asked where the money went, Eliana said it was none of his business. Gerald hired a lawyer. The lawyer advised him to protect his pension and savings by legally separating their finances. Gerald moved Eliana's name off their joint accounts. He filed the separation papers. Eliana received them at the house while Gerald was playing golf. She called Hendrix screaming. Hendrix put her on speaker. She blamed me for destroying her family. She said I turned her son against her and now her husband was leaving her. She said I was evil and calculating. Hendrix told her he was hanging up if she did not stop. She kept going. He hung up. Gerald told Hendrix that Eliana could stay in the house for now but they were living completely separate lives. He set up a room for himself in the basement. He said Eliana spent all day texting Deborah and crying. She refused to look for a job or discuss reconciliation. Gerald said he gave her several chances to be honest about the money and she chose lies every time. He sounded done with the whole situation. Brielle visited her parents separately during this time. She saw Eliana first. Eliana told Brielle that Gerald was being cruel and controlling. She said the credit card was for emergencies. Brielle asked what emergencies cost $8,000 in 2 months. Eliana said Deborah needed help with her rent deposit and first month when she moved into a new apartment. She also needed money for her car repair. And she needed help buying furniture. Eliana said those were legitimate needs. Brielle asked why Eliana did not discuss any of this with Gerald. Eliana said Gerald would not have understood. Brielle asked if Eliana realized she destroyed her marriage to help a friend who should have been handling her own problems. Eliana started crying and told Brielle to leave. Brielle then talked to Gerald. He showed her the credit card statements. The cash advances happened at ATMs near Deborah's apartment. Gerald had driven by there one day and saw Eliana's car parked outside for hours. He said Eliana was essentially funding Deborah's entire post-divorce life while their own retirement savings took a hit. Then Brielle found something out that made everything worse. Bryce's cousin works at the same company where Deborah's ex-husband works. Bryce mentioned the situation casually and the cousin said Deborah's divorce was not what Eliana thought it was. Deborah and her husband were not actually getting divorced. They were separated temporarily while the husband worked on a contract job in another state. The job was supposed to last 6 months. The husband was sending Deborah money regularly. Deborah was not struggling financially at all. Brielle did some digging through mutual friends. She confirmed that Deborah's husband was coming back in 3 weeks. Deborah had been telling people her marriage was fine and her husband would be home soon. She never told anyone she was divorcing. Eliana had either misunderstood completely or Deborah had deliberately lied to her. Brielle told Hendricks this information. Hendricks decided to tell his father. Gerald was silent on the phone for a long time after hearing it. Then he laughed. It was not a happy laugh. He said Eliana gave away nearly $15,000 total to a woman who was not even in crisis. He said Eliana was so desperate to feel important and needed that she fell for a complete lie. Hendricks suggested someone should tell Eliana the truth about Deborah's situation. Gerald said he would handle it. He sat Eliana down 2 days later and laid out everything Brielle discovered. He showed her social media posts from Deborah talking about her husband coming home soon. He showed her messages Deborah had sent to mutual friends about planning a welcome home party for her husband. Eliana, according to Gerald, went completely silent. She stared at the evidence for several minutes. Then she tried to claim Deborah must have been putting on a brave face online. Gerald asked why Deborah would need thousands of dollars if her husband was sending her money and coming back soon. Eliana had no answer. Gerald said he watched his wife realize she had been used. He said Eliana put her face in her hands and sat there without speaking. The next day, Eliana went to Deborah's apartment. She was there for over an hour. When she came back, she looked empty. Gerald asked what happened. Eliana said Deborah admitted she never planned to divorce her husband. She said she just needed extra money during the separation and knew Eliana was generous. She said she might have exaggerated how bad things were. Eliana asked if Deborah planned to pay her back. Deborah said she would try but money was tight. Gerald said that was the moment he knew his marriage was over. He said Eliana chose to believe a friend over her own husband and son. She destroyed family relationships for someone who saw her as an easy target. Gerald said he was proceeding with the separation and would likely file for divorce once the legal waiting period was done. Eliana called Hendricks after the confrontation with Deborah. She sounded different. Her voice was flat. She said she made mistakes. Hendricks asked if she was apologizing. She said she was just stating facts. She said Deborah used her and she fell for it. She said she should have listened to Gerald. But she did not say anything about how she treated me or Hendricks. She did not acknowledge demanding money from us or lying to the family. She only admitted she was wrong about Deborah. Hendricks asked if she understood why he set boundaries with her. Eliana said boundaries were just a word people used when they wanted to cut family off. Hendricks said that was not true. Eliana said she had to go and hung up. Ellen called Hendricks again last week. She said Eliana finally answered her calls. Ellen said Eliana was living in denial. Eliana told Ellen that if Hendricks would just forgive her and if I would just be more understanding, then everything would be fine. Ellen told her she was missing the point. The point was that Eliana tried to manipulate and control people through money and lies. Ellen said Eliana needed to take real responsibility. Eliana hung up on Ellen too. Brielle and Bryce stopped by our place yesterday. Brielle said their mother was telling people that Gerald abandoned her in her time of need. She was painting herself as a victim of a cold husband and ungrateful children. Brielle said some distant relatives believed Eliana's version because they did not know the full story. Brielle was tired of defending the truth. I asked Hendricks how he was handling everything. He said he felt relief more than sadness. He said for the first time in his life, he did not feel responsible for managing his mother's emotions or protecting her from consequences. He said the guilt was still there but it was getting smaller. Gerald told Hendricks he was selling the house. He said he could not afford to maintain it alone on his pension and he wanted a fresh start. Eliana would get her share from the sale as part of the separation agreement. Gerald was looking at smaller condos closer to his golf club. He said he felt lighter than he had in years. Hendricks asked his father if he regretted the marriage. Gerald said he regretted the last 10 years when Eliana became obsessed with money and status. He said the woman he married was different. Or maybe she was always this way and he ignored it. Either way, Gerald said he was choosing peace over chaos. As for Eliana, she moved out of the house last week. She is staying with Deborah temporarily. Brielle said Deborah's husband comes back in 10 days. Brielle wondered what would happen when Eliana saw them together and realized the full extent of the lie. I wondered if Eliana would finally understand what she threw away. Hendricks said his mother probably never would. He said some people were committed to their own narratives no matter what reality showed them. Final update: 8 weeks have gone by since the last update. Eliana is no longer staying with Deborah. Deborah's husband came back 3 weeks ago and apparently was not happy to find Eliana living in their apartment. According to Brielle, there was a confrontation. The husband asked Deborah why Eliana was there. Deborah explained that Eliana had been helping her financially during the separation. The husband got upset because he had been sending Deborah money the entire time he was away. He wanted to know where that money went if Deborah needed Eliana's help. It turned out Deborah had been using the money from her husband for regular expenses and Eliana's money for things she wanted but could not justify to her husband. New furniture. Salon treatments. Expensive dinners. Shopping trips. Deborah essentially had two income sources and did not tell either one about the other. The husband told Eliana she needed to leave. Eliana called Brielle from a coffee shop. She asked if she could stay with Brielle and Bryce temporarily. Brielle said no. She told her mother that she needed to figure out her own housing situation. Eliana called Hendrix next. She asked the same thing. Hendrix also said no. He told his mother she could use her share of money from the house sale that was about to close to get an apartment. Eliana said the house money would not be available for another month. Hendrix suggested she get a short-term rental or a hotel room. Eliana said she did not have money for that. Hendrix asked what happened to the thousands of dollars she was planning to save from our monthly payments to her. Eliana did not answer that question. Hendrix told her to contact Gerald since they were still legally married. Eliana said Gerald would not help her. She was right. Gerald told Hendrix he had informed Eliana weeks ago that she needed to plan for independent housing. He said he gave her resources for apartment searches and even offered to co-sign a lease if she found something affordable. Eliana refused all of it. She said she was not going to downgrade her lifestyle. Gerald said that was not his problem anymore. Eliana ended up staying at a budget motel for 2 weeks. She paid for it with one of her credit cards. Brielle said their mother called her every day complaining about the motel conditions. The room was small. The walls were thin. The parking lot felt unsafe. Brielle told her mother those were the consequences of her choices. During those 2 weeks, Ellen called Eliana again. Ellen told her granddaughter Brielle about the conversation later. Ellen had offered to let Eliana stay with her temporarily but only under certain conditions. Eliana had to get a job. Any job. Part-time retail, restaurant work, administrative temp positions. Anything to start rebuilding her finances. Eliana had to attend financial counseling. And Eliana had to write genuine apology letters to Hendrix, to me, and to Gerald acknowledging specifically what she did wrong. Eliana agreed to stay with Ellen but said the other conditions were unnecessary. Ellen said then the offer was off the table. Eliana tried to argue. Ellen said she was 81 years old and did not have time for games. Eliana could accept the conditions or figure out something else. Eliana hung up. 3 days later, Eliana called Ellen back and accepted. She moved into Ellen's spare room. Ellen lives in a retirement community about an hour away from the city. The apartment is small. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a combined kitchen and living area. Ellen told Brielle she made it clear to Eliana that this was temporary and the rules were non-negotiable. Eliana got a job at a department store folding clothes and running the register. It is part-time, minimum wage. She has been working there for 3 weeks now. Brielle visited Ellen and saw her mother in the store uniform. Brielle said Eliana looked smaller somehow. Diminished. She was polite to customers but her face showed nothing. Ellen enrolled Eliana in a financial counseling program through the community center. Eliana has attended 2 sessions. The counselor is helping her create a budget and understand where her money went wrong. Ellen reviews Eliana's spending every week. Eliana is not allowed to have credit cards anymore. Ellen made her cut them up. As for the apology letters, Eliana has not written them yet. Ellen asks about them weekly. Eliana says she is working on them. Ellen says she does not believe her. Brielle thinks her mother will never write them because it would require admitting she was wrong, not just about Deborah but about everything. Gerald finalized the house sale 2 weeks ago. Eliana received her portion of the proceeds. It was enough for a down payment on a modest condo or a year of rent in a decent apartment. Ellen tried to help Eliana look at places. Eliana kept rejecting options. Too small. Wrong neighborhood. Old appliances. Ellen told her she was not in a position to be picky. Eliana said she deserved better than what she was being shown. Last week, Eliana spent $4,000 of her house money on a 3-week cruise. She booked it without telling anyone. Ellen only found out when Eliana mentioned needing time off work and the store manager called to verify. Ellen was livid. She told Eliana she was sabotaging herself. Eliana said she needed a break from all the stress. Ellen said the cruise money could have been security deposits and rent. Eliana said she already had housing with Ellen so the money was hers to spend. Ellen told Brielle she was done. She said Eliana could stay until the end of the month and then she needed to leave. Ellen said she was too old to watch her daughter self-destruct and refuse help. Brielle asked what Eliana would do. Ellen said that was Eliana's problem to solve. Hendrix and I have had no direct contact with Eliana during any of this. She has not reached out to us. We have not reached out to her. Gerald mentioned that Eliana asks about Hendrix sometimes when she calls him for paperwork related to the separation. Gerald said he tells her Hendrix is doing fine and leaves it at that. Eliana never asks about me. Brielle said her mother blames me for everything still. In Eliana's version of events, I am a manipulative person who turned her son against her and caused her marriage to fall apart. The fact that Eliana's own choices led to these outcomes does not register. Brielle said their mother needs someone to be the villain so she does not have to face her own accountability. Hendrix has been seeing his father regularly. They play golf together on weekends. Gerald is doing well. He closed on a condo near his club. The place is small but modern and he seems happy. Gerald started dating someone he met through friends. He told Hendrix it felt strange but good to have companionship without drama. Ellen is also doing well aside from the stress of dealing with Eliana. She told Brielle she hoped Eliana would hit rock bottom soon and actually learn something. But Ellen is not optimistic. She said Eliana has been like this since she was young. Always wanting more than she had. Always thinking the world owed her something. As for Hendrix and me, we are fine. Our marriage is stronger than it was before all of this started. We learned how to communicate about difficult family issues. We learned to set boundaries without guilt. Hendrix said he used to think being a good son meant keeping his mother happy no matter what. Now he understands that being a good son means being honest and not enabling destructive behavior. People ask if I feel bad about how things turned out for Eliana. I do not. I feel bad that Hendrix lost the mother he thought he had. I feel bad that Gerald wasted years with someone who prioritized money and status over relationships. I feel bad that Brielle has to watch her mother struggle. But I do not feel bad for Eliana herself. She made choices. She faced consequences. That is how life works. Eliana will probably end up in some small apartment when Ellen's deadline hits. She will probably keep working retail or find another low-paying job. She will probably keep blaming other people for her situation. Maybe one day she will understand what she lost. Maybe she will not. Either way, it is not my concern anymore. Hendrix and I are planning a trip next month. Something we have been putting off because of work and family drama. We are going to Iceland for 10 days. No contact with anyone except each other. No mother-in-law problems. No family chaos. Just us and the northern lights and silence. That is where things stand. No reconciliation. No tearful reunion. No lessons learned on Eliana's side. Just a family that is smaller now and maybe better for it. Hendrix talks to his father and sister regularly. He talks to his grandmother monthly. He does not talk to his mother at all. He says he is open to contact if she ever takes real accountability, but he is not holding his breath. I asked him last night if he missed her. He thought about it for a while. Then he said he missed the idea of having a mother who cared more about her son than about money. But he never actually had that mother. So there is nothing real to miss. Just the fantasy he believed in for too long. That is the end of the story. There is no moral. No happy ending. Just a situation that played out the way it was always going to play out once someone finally said no to Eliana and meant it. She could not handle boundaries. She could not handle honesty. So she ended up alone with her choices. And the rest of us moved on. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. My brother's girlfriend kept pushing me to quit my job and become a housewife like her. When I told her to back off, my stepmother got involved and started leaving hostile voicemails. I went no contact and they're still trying to control my life through my friends. I am Maya, 24F, and I work as a software engineer at a tech startup. I have been working there for 2 years now and I really love what I do. I went to college for computer science and I always dreamed of building applications that people actually use. My salary is decent and I can afford my own apartment and pay all my bills without asking anyone for help. My brother Derek, 29M, has been dating his girlfriend Priya, 26F, for about 3 years now. She used to work as a marketing coordinator at some company but she quit her job last year when Derek got promoted to senior manager at his accounting firm. She now stays home and takes care of their apartment. They are not married yet but they live together and Derek pays for everything. She spends her days cooking elaborate meals, organizing their home, and doing crafts. She seems happy with this arrangement and Derek likes having someone take care of the household stuff while he focuses on his career. The problem started about 6 months ago when Priya began making comments about my lifestyle. At first it was small things. She would ask me when I was planning to settle down and find a serious boyfriend. I told her I was not interested in dating anyone right now because I wanted to focus on my career. I had just gotten a promotion at work and I was leading a new project that required a lot of my time and energy. Priya did not seem satisfied with my answer. She started bringing up how fulfilled she felt taking care of Derek and their home. She would talk about how peaceful her days were now that she did not have to deal with workplace stress and demanding bosses. She kept saying that women were naturally better at nurturing and creating a warm home environment. I usually just nodded and changed the subject because I did not want to argue with her. Then she started getting more direct. About 4 months ago, we were all having dinner at Derek's place and Priya asked me if I had ever considered that my career might be preventing me from finding true happiness. She said that she used to be stressed and unhappy when she was working but now she had found her purpose in life. She suggested that maybe I should try dating someone who could support me financially so I could experience what she was talking about. I told her that I was already happy with my life and my job gave me a sense of purpose. I explained that I enjoyed solving complex problems and working with my team to create something new. She laughed and said that I was just trying to convince myself because I had never experienced what it was like to be truly taken care of by a man. Derek did not say much during these conversations. He would sometimes nod when Priya was talking but he never really took sides. I could tell he was uncomfortable when these topics came up, but he never told his girlfriend to stop bringing them up. The situation got worse 2 months ago when Priya started introducing me to Derek's coworkers and friends. She would always mention that I was single and looking for someone serious. She told them I was ready to settle down and start a family. I had to correct her multiple times and explain that I was not actively looking for a relationship. This made social gatherings really awkward because these men would approach me expecting someone who wanted to get married soon. One evening at a barbecue at Derek's place, Priya introduced me to Marcus, 31M, who works with Derek. She had clearly told him that I was interested in finding a husband because he immediately started talking about his stable job and how he was looking for a wife who wanted to focus on family instead of career. When I told him I was focused on my career right now, he seemed confused and said that Priya had told him I was ready to give up work for the right person. I pulled Priya aside and asked her to stop telling people things about me that were not true. She said she was just trying to help me because she could see that I was missing out on what really mattered in life. She said that career success was temporary, but having a family and being supported by a loving husband was forever. 3 weeks ago, things escalated when Priya started criticizing my apartment when she came to visit. She said it looked too much like a bachelor pad and that I should make it more welcoming for potential partners. She suggested I get rid of my gaming setup in the living room and replace it with more feminine decorations. She also said my kitchen was too basic and that I should learn to cook more elaborate meals if I ever wanted to attract a serious partner. I told her that I liked my apartment the way it was and that I was not looking to attract anyone. She rolled her eyes and said I was being stubborn and that I would regret wasting my best years on a career that would not love me back. Last week was the final straw. Priya called me and said she had met the perfect man for me at Derek's company party. His name was James, 28M, and he was looking for a wife who wanted to be a homemaker. She had already told him about me and given him my phone number. She said he was planning to call me to ask me out. I was really upset because she had shared my personal information without asking me. I told her that she had crossed a line and that she needed to stop interfering in my personal life. She said she was just looking out for me because she cared about my future happiness. Then she said something that really bothered me. She told me that I was being selfish by choosing career over family and that I was going against my natural purpose as a woman. She said that God had made women to be nurturers and caregivers and that I was fighting against my own nature. She also said that my parents must be disappointed that I was not giving them grandchildren and that I would end up alone and regretful when I got older. I told her that my choices were none of her business and that she needed to respect my decisions. She got defensive and said that someone had to tell me the truth because Derek was too nice to say anything. She claimed that he had told her he was worried about me wasting my life on meaningless work. When I asked Derek about this later, he said that Priya had misunderstood something he said. He explained that he had mentioned once that he hoped I would find happiness in whatever path I chose, and somehow she had interpreted that as him being worried about my career choices. He apologized for not speaking up sooner but said he did not want to cause problems between me and Priya. The situation got even more complicated when James actually called me. He had clearly been told that I was eager to quit my job and become a housewife. He talked about his financial stability and how he could support a family on his salary alone. When I explained that I was not interested in giving up my career, he seemed annoyed and said that Priya had wasted his time. I decided I needed to have a serious conversation with both Derek and Priya. I went to their apartment last Saturday and told them that Priya's behavior was affecting my relationship with my brother and that it needed to stop. I explained that I was happy with my life choices and that I did not need anyone to find me a husband or tell me how to live. Priya immediately got defensive and said that I was overreacting. She insisted that she was just trying to help me avoid making a huge mistake. She said that women who prioritized career over family often ended up lonely and bitter, and she was trying to save me from that fate. I told her that even if that were true, it would be my choice to make and my consequences to face. I said that she needed to stop commenting on my lifestyle and stop trying to set me up with men without my permission. Derek finally spoke up and said that maybe Priya should back off a little. But then Priya turned to him and said that he had agreed with her that I needed guidance. She claimed that he had said I was too focused on work to see the bigger picture. Derek looked uncomfortable and said that he had never said I needed guidance. He said he had only mentioned that he wanted me to be happy, and Priya had taken that to mean something completely different. This led to an argument between Derek and Priya, with her accusing him of not supporting her efforts to help his sister. She said that she had been putting herself out there to find me a good husband and that both of us were being ungrateful. I left their apartment feeling frustrated and confused. Derek texted me later that night to apologize for not handling the situation better. He said he would talk to Priya about respecting my boundaries. But 2 days later, Priya called me again. She said that she had been thinking about our conversation and that she still believed I was making a mistake. She told me that she had spoken to some older women at her church and they had all agreed that career-focused women often struggled to find good husbands as they got older. She then said something that really crossed the line. She told me that she had heard that my company was planning layoffs and that I should use this as an opportunity to reevaluate my priorities. She suggested that instead of stressing about job security, I should focus on finding a man who could provide stability. I asked her where she had heard about layoffs at my company. She said that Derek had mentioned it, but when I called Derek, he said he had no idea what she was talking about. He had never heard anything about layoffs at my workplace. I realized that Priya had made up the story about layoffs to try to scare me into reconsidering my career. This made me question everything else she had been telling me about what Derek supposedly said or thought about my choices. Now I am wondering if I should continue having a relationship with my brother while he is with someone who clearly does not respect my life choices and is willing to lie to manipulate me. Derek says he loves me and supports my decisions, but he has not been able to stop his girlfriend from interfering in my life. I am also worried about how this might affect family gatherings and holidays. Priya is likely to be around for most family events, and I do not want to deal with constant comments about my lifestyle choices. But I also do not want to lose my relationship with my brother, who has been important to me my whole life. So am I wrong for wanting my brother's girlfriend to stop pushing me to become a housewife and quit my job? Should I just ignore her comments and try to maintain peace in the family? Update 1: A lot has happened since my original post and I wanted to update everyone who gave me advice. Thank you to everyone who told me that Priya's behavior was not normal and that I was right to be concerned. I decided to follow the advice about having a clear conversation with Derek about boundaries. I called him and asked if we could meet for coffee without Priya. He agreed and we met at a cafe near my office last Tuesday. I told Derek exactly how his girlfriend's behavior was affecting me and our relationship. I explained that her constant comments about my lifestyle were making me uncomfortable and that her attempts to set me up with men without my permission were crossing boundaries. I also mentioned that she had lied about the layoffs at my company, which made me question her honesty about other things. Derek listened and said he understood why I was upset. He apologized again for not speaking up sooner. But then he said something that really surprised me. He told me that Priya had been talking to his mom about me and that his mom had expressed similar concerns about my focus on career over family. I need to give some background here. Derek and I have different mothers. His mom is Linda, 52F, and she has always been traditional. She got married young and stayed home to raise Derek. My mom died when I was 8 and my dad remarried Linda when I was 10. Linda was always nice to me but we never had the close relationship that she had with Derek. She would make comments sometimes about how I was too independent for my own good, but I thought she was just being protective. Derek told me that Linda had been asking Priya to help guide me toward making better choices. According to Derek, Linda was worried that I was going to end up alone because I was not prioritizing finding a husband. She had apparently asked Priya to introduce me to suitable men and encourage me to be more open to settling down. This information changed everything for me. It meant that Priya's behavior was not just her own idea but something that Linda had encouraged or even requested. It also meant that Derek had known about this arrangement and had not told me. I asked Derek why he had not mentioned that Linda was involved. He said he thought it would just cause more problems and that he hoped Priya would handle things more subtly. He admitted that he should have told Priya to stop when her approach became too aggressive. I was really upset that both of them had been discussing my personal life behind my back and making plans to change my behavior without involving me. I told Derek that I felt betrayed that he had known about Linda's involvement and had not warned me. Derek said he was sorry and that he had not realized how much the situation was bothering me. He promised to talk to both Linda and Priya about backing off. He said he would make it clear that my life choices were my own business and that they needed to respect my boundaries. I told him that I needed some time to think about everything and that I would not be attending any family gatherings for a while. Derek seemed disappointed but said he understood. 3 days after our coffee meeting, Linda called me directly. She said that Derek had told her about our conversation and that she wanted to clarify some things. She said that she had only asked Priya to keep an eye out for good men who might be suitable for me, not to actively interfere in my life. But then Linda started saying things that made it clear she agreed with Priya's overall message. She told me that she was concerned about my future and that she thought I was making a mistake by not prioritizing family. She said that she had seen too many women who focused on career and then struggled to find good husbands when they decided they were ready. Linda also said something that really bothered me. She told me that my dad had mentioned to her that he was worried about me being too independent. She said that both she and my dad thought I might benefit from having someone guide me toward making better choices about relationships. I was shocked because my dad had never said anything to me directly about being concerned about my independence. I called him that evening to ask about what Linda had told me. My dad, 49M, seemed confused when I brought it up. He said that Linda had asked him once if he thought I was happy, and he had said that he hoped I would find whatever made me happy, whether that was career success or family or both. He said he had never expressed concern about me being too independent. This was the second time someone had claimed that a family member had said something they had not actually said. First Priya had claimed Derek was worried about my career choices, and now Linda was claiming my dad was concerned about my independence. I started to wonder if Linda and Priya were working together to manipulate situations and conversations to support their agenda. It seemed like they were taking innocent comments and twisting them to justify their interference in my life. I decided to be more direct with Linda. I called her back and told her that I did not need anyone to guide my relationship choices and that I wanted both her and Priya to stop discussing my personal life. I explained that their interference was damaging my relationship with Derek and making family situations uncomfortable. Linda did not take this well. She said that I was being ungrateful and that she was only trying to help because she cared about my future. She told me that I was too young to understand what I was giving up by not prioritizing family. She also said that Priya had been generous with her time and effort to help me, and I was being rude by rejecting her assistance. Then Linda said something that made me realize how deep this problem went. She told me that she and Priya had been discussing the possibility of organizing a small gathering where they could introduce me to several single men from their church and Derek's workplace. She said they had thought that if I met multiple options at once, I might be more open to the idea of dating with marriage in mind. I was horrified that they had been planning what sounded like some kind of matchmaking event without even asking me. I told Linda that under no circumstances was she to organize anything like that and that I would not attend if she did. Linda got defensive and said that she was just trying to help me avoid the regret that came with wasting opportunities. She said that younger women often thought they had all the time in the world but then realized too late that they had missed their chance for happiness. I ended the conversation by telling Linda that I needed space from both her and Priya and that I would not be participating in any family events where they would be pressuring me about my lifestyle choices. The next day, Derek called me and said that Linda had told him about our conversation. He seemed frustrated and said that he had not known about the matchmaking event they were planning. He said he would talk to both of them about respecting my boundaries and leaving me alone. But Derek also said something that concerned me. He told me that he was caught in the middle of this situation and that it was putting strain on his relationship with Priya. He said that Priya was upset that I was rejecting her help and that she felt like I was being selfish and stubborn. Derek asked if there was any compromise we could reach that would make everyone happy. He suggested that maybe I could be more polite about declining Priya's suggestions and that maybe I could attend one small gathering just to show that I appreciated their concern. I told Derek that there was no compromise to be made because this was not a situation where both sides had valid points. I explained that my personal life was not something that could be negotiated and that asking me to pretend to appreciate unwanted interference was not reasonable. Derek said he understood but that he was worried about how this conflict was affecting his relationship with Priya and his mom. He said that both of them felt like I was rejecting the family by refusing to consider their advice. I realized that Derek was more concerned about keeping peace with his girlfriend and stepmother than he was about supporting my right to make my own choices. This made me understand that the problem was bigger than just Priya's interference. The problem was that my family members were willing to pressure me to change my life to avoid conflict with people who should not have had a say in my decisions in the first place. I told Derek that I needed more time to figure out how to handle this situation and that I would not be available for family events for the foreseeable future. He said he hoped I would reconsider and find a way to work things out. But the situation got even more complicated 2 days later when I found out that Priya had contacted my workplace. She had called the main number and asked to speak to my supervisor. She told my supervisor that she was concerned about my work-life balance and asked if there were any employee assistance programs that could help me understand the importance of family relationships. My supervisor, Janet, 41F, called me into her office and asked if everything was okay at home. She said that someone claiming to be a family member had called with concerns about my priorities and had suggested that I might benefit from counseling about work-life balance. I was mortified that Priya had contacted my workplace and involved my supervisor in this personal conflict. I explained to Janet that there was a family disagreement about my lifestyle choices and that the person who called did not have the right to contact my employer about personal matters. Janet was understanding and said that she was not concerned about my work performance or priorities. She said that the call had seemed strange to her and that she had not planned to take any action based on it. But she wanted to make sure I was not dealing with any serious personal problems that might affect my work. I assured Janet that my work performance would not be affected and that I would handle the personal situation. But I was furious that Priya had tried to involve my employer in this conflict. When I confronted Derek about Priya calling my workplace, he was shocked. He said he had no idea she had done that and that he would talk to her immediately. He called me back an hour later and said that Priya admitted to making the call but claimed she was just concerned about my well-being. According to Derek, Priya said she thought that maybe someone at work could help me understand that I was focusing too much on career at the expense of personal relationships. She apparently thought that my supervisor might have resources or advice that could help me see things differently. Derek said he had told Priya that contacting my workplace was completely inappropriate and that she needed to apologize to me. But when Priya called me later that day, her apology did not sound sincere. She said she was sorry if I was upset, but that she had been trying to help me from every angle because she could see that I was not going to change my mind based on family conversations alone. This made me realize that Priya saw my refusal to change my lifestyle as a problem that needed to be solved rather than a choice that needed to be respected. She was escalating her efforts because she believed that I was making a mistake that required intervention. I told Derek that Priya's behavior had crossed too many lines and that I could not continue to have a relationship with him while she was actively interfering in my life and contacting my workplace. I said that I needed him to choose between supporting my boundaries and maintaining his relationship with someone who did not respect them. Derek said he would think about what I had said and get back to me. That was 4 days ago and I have not heard from him since. Update 2: I am writing this update because some people asked me to let them know what happened with Derek and whether he ever responded to my ultimatum about choosing between supporting my boundaries and maintaining his relationship with Priya. Derek did eventually call me back, but it took him 2 weeks to do it. When he finally called, He said that he had been thinking about everything and that he had decided he could not ask Priya to completely change her approach because he believed her intentions were good. He said that he had talked to Priya about backing off, and she had agreed to stop contacting my workplace and stop organizing matchmaking events. But he said that he could not ask her to stop expressing her opinions about my lifestyle choices because that would be limiting her freedom of speech. Derek also said that he had talked to Linda, and she had agreed to be more subtle about her concerns. But he said that both Linda and Priya still cared about my future and wanted to be able to express their thoughts when appropriate. I asked Derek what he meant by appropriate, and he said that they should still be able to bring up their concerns during family conversations and give advice when I asked for it. I pointed out that I had never asked for their advice about my career or relationship choices, but Derek said that sometimes people need to hear things they do not want to hear. This conversation made it clear to me that Derek was not going to fully support my boundaries. He was willing to ask Priya and Linda to tone down their behavior, but he was not willing to tell them that my personal choices were off limits for discussion. I told Derek that his solution was not acceptable to me and that I would not be participating in family events or maintaining regular contact while Priya and Linda felt entitled to comment on my lifestyle choices. Derek seemed disappointed and said that he hoped I would reconsider. He said that cutting myself off from family over this issue seemed extreme and that I was hurting myself more than anyone else. I ended the conversation by telling Derek that I was not cutting myself off from family, but that I was protecting myself from people who did not respect my autonomy. I said that the door was always open for a relationship with him if he decided to prioritize my boundaries over other people's opinions. After that conversation, I did not hear from Derek for about 3 weeks. But Linda started calling me every few days. At first, she was trying to convince me to reconsider my position. She said that I was being too sensitive and that people who cared about me should be able to express their concerns. But when I did not respond positively to her arguments, Linda started getting more aggressive. She began leaving voicemails saying that I was being selfish and ungrateful. She said that she had raised me as her own daughter and that I owed her the respect of listening to her advice. I need to clarify something here. Linda did not raise me as her own daughter. She married my dad when I was 10, and while she was always nice to me, she made it clear that Derek was her priority. I lived with them until I was 18, but Linda never took on a motherly role with me. She was more like a friendly step-parent who was polite but distant. Linda's claim that she had raised me and that I owed her something seemed like an attempt to manipulate me into feeling guilty for not accepting her interference. It also made me realize that she might have been building up a role in my life to justify her involvement in my personal decisions. The voicemails from Linda continued for about a week, and they got increasingly hostile. She started saying that I was being influenced by feminist ideas that were poisoning my mind against family values. She said that I was going to end up lonely and bitter and that I would regret not listening to people who cared about me. In one particularly nasty voicemail, Linda said that my real mother would be ashamed of the person I had become and that she was glad she was not alive to see how selfish and ungrateful I had turned out. That voicemail crossed a line that I could not ignore. I had never brought my real mother into this conflict, and Linda had no right to speculate about what she would have thought about my choices. I was also hurt that Linda would use my mother's death as a weapon in this argument. I called Derek and told him about the voicemails Linda had been leaving. I played him the one where she mentioned my mother, and he was quiet for a long time after hearing it. Derek said that Linda had been really upset about the situation and that she felt like I was rejecting the entire family. He said that her comment about my mother was out of line, but he asked me to understand that she was speaking from a place of frustration and concern. I told Derek that I did not care what Linda's motivations were and that bringing my dead mother into the argument was unforgivable. I said that if he could not see why that was wrong, then he was not the person I thought he was. Derek said he would talk to Linda about her voicemails, but he also said that I needed to understand that my decision to cut off contact was affecting everyone in the family. He said that Linda felt rejected and that Priya was upset that her efforts to help me had caused so much conflict. I pointed out that nobody had asked Priya to help me and that the conflict had been caused by her refusal to respect my boundaries, not by my decision to enforce them. But Derek said that the situation had gone beyond the original problem and that everyone needed to find a way to move forward. Derek then suggested that maybe we could have a family meeting where everyone could express their feelings and work toward a resolution. He said that maybe if I heard directly from Linda and Priya about why they were concerned, I might understand their perspective better. I told Derek that I was not interested in a family meeting where I would be outnumbered by people who wanted to change my life choices. I said that there was nothing for Linda and Priya to explain because their motivations did not matter if their actions were harmful to me. Derek said that my refusal to consider any kind of compromise was making the situation worse and that I was being just as stubborn as I accused them of being. He said that families were supposed to work through conflicts together, not cut each other off when things got difficult. I realized during this conversation that Derek was never going to fully understand my position. He saw this conflict as a disagreement between family members who needed to find middle ground, rather than a situation where some people were violating boundaries that should have been respected from the beginning. I told Derek that I was done trying to explain my position and that I would not be changing my mind about maintaining distance from Linda and Priya. I said that he was welcome to have a relationship with me that did not involve them, but that I would not be participating in family gatherings or conversations where my lifestyle choices were up for discussion. Derek said he was disappointed in my decision and that he hoped I would eventually realize that I was hurting myself more than anyone else. He said that Linda and Priya would move on with their lives, but I would be the one missing out on family relationships. After that conversation, I decided to block Linda's phone number because her voicemails were getting increasingly nasty and I did not want to keep hearing her attacks on my character and my mother's memory. 2 weeks later, I found out that Priya had been telling people at Derek's workplace that I was having some kind of breakdown and that I had cut off contact with my family because I could not handle their concern about my life choices. One of Derek's coworkers who knew me from social gatherings reached out to ask if I was okay and if there was anything he could do to help. I was embarrassed that Priya was spreading stories about my mental health at Derek's workplace, but I was also grateful that someone had contacted me directly to ask about the situation. I explained to Derek's coworker that there was no breakdown and that I had simply decided to limit contact with family members who would not respect my boundaries. When I confronted Derek about Priya spreading stories about my mental health, he said that she was just concerned and that she might have exaggerated the situation when people asked her why I was not attending family events anymore. Derek said that Priya was not trying to hurt me, but that she was frustrated and might have said things that did not come out the way she intended. He asked me to consider that Priya was also dealing with stress from this conflict and that she might not be handling it perfectly. I told Derek that I did not care how stressed Priya was and that she had no right to discuss my personal situation with his coworkers or anyone else. I said that spreading stories about someone's mental health was not something that could be excused as poor handling of stress. Derek said he would talk to Priya about not discussing the situation with other people, but he also said that he could not control everything she said when people asked her about family situations. This response made it clear to me that Derek was never going to hold Priya accountable for her behavior in any meaningful way. He was always going to find excuses for her actions and ask me to be understanding of her motivations. I told Derek that I was done with all of them and that I would not be responding to any more attempts at contact from him, Linda, or Priya. I said that they had all shown me that they cared more about their own comfort and opinions than they did about respecting my autonomy. Derek made one more attempt to convince me to reconsider, but I ended the conversation and blocked his number as well. Update 3. This will be my final update because I think the situation has reached its conclusion and there is not much more to say. After I blocked Derek's number, things were quiet for about 6 weeks. I focused on my work and started spending more time with friends and coworkers. I realized that I had been so stressed about the family situation that I had not been fully present in other areas of my life. My project at work was going really well, and my supervisor Janet had started involving me in client meetings and strategic planning sessions. I felt like my career was moving in the right direction and I was glad that I had not let my family's pressure influence my professional decisions. But the peace did not last as long as I had hoped. About 2 months after I blocked Derek's number, my dad called me. He said that Linda had been talking to him about the situation and that he was concerned about how things had escalated. My dad said that he understood I was upset with Linda and Priya, but that cutting off contact with Derek seemed like an extreme response. He said that Derek was my brother and that family relationships should be able to survive disagreements about lifestyle choices. I explained to my dad that this was not just a disagreement about lifestyle choices, but a pattern of behavior where multiple family members had refused to respect my boundaries and had actively interfered in my personal and professional life. I told my dad about Priya calling my workplace and Linda leaving hostile voicemails, including the one where she brought up my mother. My dad was quiet when I mentioned that, and he said he had not known about Linda's comment about my mother. My dad said that Linda's voicemail had been inappropriate and that he would talk to her about it. But he also said that he thought Linda and Priya had been trying to help, even if their methods were wrong. I asked my dad why everyone kept focusing on their intentions instead of the impact of their actions. I pointed out that good intentions did not excuse behavior that was harmful and invasive. My dad said that he thought I was right to be upset, but that completely cutting off contact seemed like it was hurting me more than it was helping. He said that I was missing out on a relationship with Derek and that I might regret that decision later. I told my dad that I had not wanted to cut off contact with Derek, but that Derek had made it clear that he was not willing to prioritize my boundaries over his relationship with Priya and his desire to keep peace with Linda. My dad asked if there was any way I would consider having a conversation with Derek without Linda and Priya being involved. He said that maybe Derek and I could work out our issues directly and find a way to have a relationship that did not involve the other two. I thought about this for a few days and decided that I would be willing to have one conversation with Derek, but only if he could guarantee that Linda and Priya would not be told about it and would not be involved in any way. My dad arranged for Derek to call me, and we had a conversation that lasted about an hour. Derek said that he missed talking to me and that he regretted how things had escalated. He said that he understood why I was upset and that he wished he had handled things differently from the beginning. But when I asked Derek if he was willing to set clear boundaries with Linda and Priya about not discussing my personal life, he said that he thought that would be difficult to enforce. He said that they were both part of his daily life and that it would be hard to completely separate my relationship with him from his relationships with them. Derek also said that he thought I was asking him to choose between me and Priya, which he felt was unfair. He said that he should be able to have relationships with both of us without having to take sides in our conflict. I explained to Derek that I was not asking him to choose between me and Priya in general, but that I was asking him to choose between enabling her interference in my life and having a relationship with me. I said that those were two different things. Derek said that he understood the distinction, but that he did not think he could guarantee that Priya would never bring up her concerns about my lifestyle in the future. He said that she cared about me and that it was natural for people who cared about each other to express their opinions. This conversation made it clear to me that Derek still did not understand the difference between expressing an opinion and repeatedly interfering in someone's personal decisions despite being asked to stop. He also did not seem to understand that my relationship with him should be separate from his girlfriend's opinions about my life. I told Derek that I appreciated him calling, but that I did not think we could have a meaningful relationship while he was unable or unwilling to set boundaries with people who did not respect my autonomy. Derek said he was disappointed and that he hoped I would change my mind eventually. He said that he would always be open to rebuilding our relationship if I decided I wanted to try again. I ended the conversation by telling Derek that the door was open for a relationship with him, but only if he was willing to keep my personal life separate from his discussions with Linda and Priya. I said that until that happened, I needed to maintain my distance for my own well-being. After that conversation, I felt like I had closure on the situation. I had given Derek multiple opportunities to choose my boundaries over other people's comfort, and he had consistently chosen to prioritize keeping peace with Linda and Priya over supporting my right to make my own decisions. 3 weeks after my conversation with Derek, something happened that confirmed I had made the right choice. My friend Sarah, 26F, from college called me and said that someone had contacted her on social media asking questions about me. The person had identified herself as a family member and had asked Sarah if she thought I was happy with my current lifestyle and if I had ever expressed regret about not having a boyfriend. Sarah had not responded to the messages, but she took screenshots and sent them to me. The profile belonged to Linda, and she had apparently found Sarah through my old college photos that were still visible on my social media accounts. I was disturbed that Linda was now contacting my friends to gather information about my personal life and potentially spread her opinions about my choices. This showed me that even after months of me maintaining no contact, she was still actively trying to interfere in my life. I decided not to respond to this development or tell my dad about it. I realized that every time I tried to address Linda's behavior through family members, it just created more opportunities for conflict and manipulation. Instead, I focused on building stronger relationships with people who respected my choices and supported my goals. I started attending professional networking events and joined a hiking group where I met people who shared my interests. At work, I was promoted to senior developer and was given the opportunity to lead a team on a new project. My supervisor Janet mentioned that she was impressed with my focus and dedication, and that she thought I had strong leadership potential. I also started dating someone I met through the hiking group. His name is Alex, 27M, and he works as a graphic designer. He has never questioned my career priorities or suggested that I should change my lifestyle. We have been together for 2 months now and I am happy with how our relationship is developing. Alex knows about the situation with my family, and he has been supportive of my decision to maintain boundaries. He said that anyone who truly cared about me would want me to be happy with my own choices rather than trying to force me into a life that did not fit my goals. About a month ago, my dad called again and said that Derek and Priya had gotten engaged. He said that Derek had asked him to let me know in case I wanted to reach out and congratulate them. My dad also said that Derek was hoping I might consider attending the wedding if I was invited. I told my dad that I was not interested in attending Derek's wedding if Linda and Priya would be treating it as an opportunity to continue their campaign about my lifestyle choices. I said that I wished Derek happiness, but that I could not participate in family events where my personal decisions would be up for discussion. My dad said he understood, but that he was sad about how the situation had affected our family. He said that holidays and gatherings felt incomplete without me there. I told my dad that I was also sad about missing family events, but that I was not willing to subject myself to ongoing pressure and criticism in order to maintain relationships with people who did not respect my autonomy. My dad said that he hoped things might change over time and that maybe eventually everyone could find a way to move forward. He said that he would always want me to be part of the family if I decided I was ready to try again. I appreciated my dad's position because he was the only family member who had never tried to pressure me to change my choices or suggested that my boundaries were unreasonable. He had always focused on wanting me to be happy rather than wanting me to live up to specific expectations. 2 weeks ago, I received a wedding invitation in the mail. It was addressed to me and Alex, which surprised me because I had not told Derek about my relationship. I realized that someone must have been keeping track of my social media activity or asking mutual acquaintances about my life. The invitation included a handwritten note from Derek saying that he hoped I would consider attending and that he missed having me in his life. He said that Priya wanted to apologize for how things had gotten out of hand and that she hoped we could start fresh. I decided not to respond to the invitation. I realized that attending the wedding would send a message that I was ready to resume family relationships on the same terms that had caused problems before. I also did not trust that Priya's desire to apologize was genuine, given that she had never shown any understanding of why her behavior had been problematic. Last week, my dad called to ask if I had received the invitation and whether I was planning to attend. I told him that I would not be going to the wedding and that I did not think Derek and Priya were ready to have a relationship with me that respected my boundaries. My dad seemed disappointed but said he understood my decision. He said that he would miss having me there, but that he respected my need to protect yourself from situations that caused me stress. I asked my dad to let Derek know that I wished him happiness in his marriage, but that I would not be attending the wedding or resuming contact unless there were significant changes in how my family members approached our relationships. As I write this update, I am at peace with my decisions. I have a job I love, a relationship that makes me happy, and friendships with people who support my goals and respect my choices. I am not lonely or bitter, despite what Linda predicted would happen to me. I do miss having Derek in my life, and I am sad that our relationship became a casualty of other people's inability to respect boundaries. But I have learned that protecting my autonomy and well-being is more important than maintaining relationships with people who view my life choices as problems that need to be solved. I hope that someday Derek will understand the difference between caring about someone and trying to control their decisions. If that happens, I would be open to rebuilding our relationship. But until then, I am focused on building a life that makes me happy rather than trying to satisfy other people's expectations about what my life should look like. Thank you to everyone who supported me through this situation and helped me understand that I was not wrong to prioritize my own well-being and autonomy. Your advice and encouragement meant more to me than you know.